Aboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Samech Aleph Amud Aleph. Starting with Daf Samech Amud Beis, 6 lines from the bottom. The Gemara just finished discussing a Korban Pesach B'shar Yemois Hashana. We know that when it comes to a Korban Pesach the rest of the year, it's established to be a Shlomim. And therefore, if a person before Pesach, let's say a week before Pesach, he were to bring that Korban Pesach, if he would bring it as a Korban Pesach L'Shem, Korban Pesach, it would be invalid because a Korban Pesach must be brought on the 14th of Nisan. However, if he brings it L'Shem, Korban Shlomim, it would, yes, be valid. The Gemara now asks the following, Iboy Lahu, Pesach Sheshochtoi B'shar Yemois Hashana B'shinui Bailim. A Korban Pesach that is brought the rest of the year with a Shinui the Bailim. Instead of having it B'shem Shimon, it has it B'shem Reuven. Is that going to be valid? Mahu, what's the din? The Gemara says the following. Shinui Bailim Keshinui Kodesh. Shinui Kodesh is what we referred to before, that was initially as a Korban Pesach, but then during the course of the year, some other Shar Yemois Hashana, it was brought as a Korban Shlomim. And there we say again, it is valid. So over here we're saying, Shinui Bailim Keshinui Kodesh, a change of Bailim, the one is going to get a kapara from this Korban. It's like a Shinui Kodesh when we change again the designation to be a Korban Shlomim. Dami. Umachshir lei oiloi. And therefore we would say, just as the Korban Shlomim would be valid during the rest of the year, so too when we make a Shinui in the Bailim, that would also be equally valid or not. That's the question that the Gemara is asking. Omar Rav Papa said, Amrise l'shmaitze kamei de Rava. I said the following argument before Rava. Hoyil v'shinui kodesh poisloi bizmanoi v'shinui bailim poisloi bizmano. Just like both of them, when you change the time, that I changed the designation to be a Korban Shlomim on the day itself of Yudalid Nisan, when the Korban Pesach is supposed to be brought. So certainly that's not going to be valid. Similarly, on the Yudalid Ben Nisan, if you would change the Bailim, that would also be invalid. So then, Mashinui Kodesh Shepoisloi Bizmanoi Machshu Lachar Zmano. Yet we say that later on in the year, a different time of the year, if you now make it a Korban Shlomim, it is valid. So too then, Af Shinui Bailim, Shepoisloi Bizmanoi, Machshiu La'achar Zmanoi. So too when it comes to Shinui Bailim, then the rest of the year, the logic would dictate that it would have also a validity, just as the changing to be a Korban Shlomim. V'omar li, and Rava said back to me, says Rav Papa, Amarta b'shinui kodesh shekaim psuloi begufay. There's differences between the shinui kodesh, by changing it to a Korban Shlomim, to that which is a shinui of the Bailim. Because shinui kodesh, when you change to a Korban Shlomim, that is much more significant, therefore it has the ability to change the designation and be valid. For the following 4 reasons, the Gemara says. First of all, it says, shekaim psuloi begufay. When it comes to Shinui, to make a Korban Shlomim, you're changing to the actual Korban, from a Korban Pesach to a Korban Shlomim. V'yeshno ba'arba avodas. Also, all 4 of the avodas hadam, that means Shchita, Kabbalah, Holicha, as well as the Zrikas hadam, that all will disqualify the Korban Pesach. V'yeshno la'achar miso, on top of Samach Aleph, Amud Aleph. Also, it has la'achar misa. If indeed the Bailim were to die, the son of the Bailim would then bring the Korban, and then the Kohen would then bring it in the wrong way. So then it would be the responsibility of the child to bring another Korban in its place from the estate of the father. V'yeshno b'tzibur k'biyachid. And the 4th thing that shows the strength of making making a Korban to a Korban Shlomim, is that the tzibur is like the Yachid. It has the same designation as the Yachid, even though it's a Korban tzibur. Toimar, you're going to say, Rava continues to say to Rav Papa, Bishinoi Bailim, whereas Shinoi Bailim does not have these things. De'ein psula begufoi, ve'einoi ba'arba avodos. It only has one of the avodas, the hind of the zrika, that's going to then ma'akev. Ve'eino la'achar miso. Ve'eino b'tzibur kiviyachid. So it doesn't have the other four things as it does when you have a shinui in the actual korban of shinui kodesh. So that's Rava's retort to Rav Papa, and therefore he says you cannot learn one from the next. The analogy is not a good, valid analogy. So although the rest of the year, that korban pesach that then is designated as a korban shlom is valid, but if the rest of the year you make it a different bailim, it's going to be invalid. You wouldn't be able to then make that comparison. The Afal Gav, the Gemara points out that tarti lav dafka, tarti miya dafka. The Gemara points out, of the four things that you want to show that making a korban shlomim is stronger than changing the bailim, there was not really four things. Really, two of them are valid and two of them are not valid, as follows. Because the Maishna Shinoi Bailim, what is the difference in Shinoi Bailim? The Loi Have Psula Begufa, you'll say because it's not Psula Begufa, whereas Shinoi Kodesh is a yes, Shinoi Begufa. The Gemara says, the Psula Machshava Ba'almahi. Why? Because it's only a change in the Machshava when you then change the Bailim. Shinui Kodesh Nami Psula Machshava Ba'almahi. The Gemara says that's true also when it comes to Shinui Kodesh. You're also really only changing the Shinui Ayideya Machshava Ba'alma. You're not actually changing the behema itself. Visu, and further, Hoda Omar Shinui Bailim Eino La'achar Miso. That which it states, you said when it comes to making a korban shlomim, then if it is then brought by the son and it is not brought up by the kohen in the right way, it will have to be rebrought by the estate of the father. And you said that's not true when it comes to shinoi bailim. Says the Gemara, wait a second, the Rav Pinchas, Berebi Derav Ami, the Omar Yesh Shinui Bailim La'achar Misa, Ma'ikil Meimar. He does say that there would be an equal requirement when it comes to Shinui Bailim. So therefore, two of those things are really not accurate. However, Tarti Miyaz Davka Ninhu. Nonetheless, two of them are yes accurate, and therefore Rava's retort to Rav Papa is that it's not a good analogy. You can't learn out the Shinui Bailim from Shinui Kodesh. Elo Marove. Rather, therefore Rava says, Pesach sheshachta b'shayim ois hashana b'shinui bailim. If the rest of the year you're going to make a shinui bailim, then he says this naskim she'ein loy bailim bizmanoi uposel. It would be just like on the 14th of Nisan, where you bring the korban Pesach, you make a shinui in the bailim. That certainly invalidates the korban Pesach. So too during the rest of the year, if you make a shinui bailim, it's going to be invalid. The Mishnah brings, indeed, the requirements when a person shechs the korban Pesach, that he has to include those who are roy to eat the korban Pesach. As follows: Shachto shaloi lo oichlov. He shechs the korban Pesach to those who are not going to be roy to eat the korban Pesach, meaning to say they cannot eat a kezayis of the korban Pesach. Or v'shaloi leminuyov, or he shechs the korban Pesach for those who are not included in the chabura of this korban Pesach. Lo arelim uletmeim, or he shechs the korban Pesach for arelim, those who have not had a circumcision. After the 8 days old, person is mechuyev to have a bris milah, and he's excluded from eating the korban Pesach. Or litmeim, people who are tamei anyways cannot eat from any kachim. All these cases posel. Again, if posel shechs for the sake of any of these people, meaning solely for these people, then it will be invalid. The Mishnah goes on to say, lo oichlav v'shel lo oichlav. However, if it's both for those who could yes eat a kezayis of the basar of korban Pesach, as well as together with those who cannot, or lemenuyav v'shel lo lemenuyav, those who are included and counted in the chabura together with those who are not. Lemulim u'le'arelim, those who have bris milah and those who do not. Litmeim u'letaharim, those who are tahor and those who are tamei. kosher. All of this would also be valid because included in the kavana when you're shechting are for those who are roi la'achila. The Mishnah goes on to say other psulim. When a person shechts the Korban Pesach, shachtoi kodem chatzos pasul. A person shechts the Korban Pesach before chatzos hayoim is invalid. Mishum, the Mishnah brings a pasuk shenemar bein har boyim. There's a requirement that it be shechted between chatzos and shkias hachama, and therefore, if it's shechted before chatzos, it's ma'ake if it's invalid. The Mishnah goes on to say shachtoi kodem letamid kosher. If a person, although bilichatchila, one should shech the Korban Pesach after the Korban Tamid, as we learned earlier on in the parak. But if he did not, he shechted the Korban Pesach before the Tamid shel bein ha'arboyim, it is valid. Again, providing that's after Chatzos. Now, if he does shecht the Korban Pesach, and he did not yet be zorek the dam on the Mizbeach, then he should wait till after he does the entire avoid of the Korban Tamid shel bein ha'arboyim. And therefore, if he's going to sprinkle the blood of the Korban Pesach after the Korban Tamid shel bein harbayim, then in the meanwhile they have to then stir the blood that is going to be something liquefied or remain liquid, so they can go ahead and zorek the dam on the mizbeach afterwards. The im nizrak kosher. However, if they did zorek the blood of the Korban Tamid, the Korban Pesach before the Korban Tamid, then b'di'evid it is valid. The Gemara now brings a brayso tanu rabbanon. Keitzad sheloi lo oichlov. What is the scenario that we say in the Mishnah that when one shechs the Korban Pesach, for those who cannot eat a kazayis of the meat of the Korban Pesach, then it's invalid. What is that referring to? Says the brayso l'shum choyle l'shum zoking. When he shechs it for a sick person who is not able, he's not capable of eating a kazayis, as well as one of the elderly, then it's invalid. Keitzad shelo limnuyav. What is the case as the brayso that you're shechting it, the Korban Pesach, for somebody who's not included in the chabura? Nimnu alo chabura zu v'shachtu l'shem chabura acheres. They were counted for this chabura, and he shechts it for a different chabura. That's going to make it invalid. Minahani mi li asked the Gemara. From where do we know this? The Ton Rabbanan, that if indeed it's without those who are included in the Chabura, and shechted for a different Chabura is going to make it pasul, because it says in the pasuk b'michsas. The pasuk reads b'michsas nefosh. Michsas means cheshboin, the amount that's counted. Nefoshes ish lefi ochloi, each according to his eating. Tachoisu al haseh, he will be counted on the seh. So says the Gemara, Ton Rabbanan, b'michsas, in the cheshboin, teaching us that the Korban Pesach must be shechted only for those who are counted as part of the chabura of the Korban Pesach. Yochel, I might think I might think that a person does not shecht on those who are counted, so it's not, he's over a mitzvah, but it's not ma'akev. B'di'evet, it's still okay. Talmud noimar b'michsas tachoisu. That's why the post that we just quoted begins by saying b'michsas nefoshes ish lefi oichloi and concludes tachoisu alaseh. Hakosu, says the Gemara, teaches me shona hakosu shona alov la'akev. It repeats on the cheshbon, on the people who are included, who are designated for the Korban Pesach, to show you that it's ma'akev. Rabbi says, Loshin Sursi Hu. This is a Loshin of Aramit, one of the dialects of the Aramaic dialect, when it says Tachoisu. Like a person who says to his friend, slaughter this lamb. And therefore it has to be that he's designated on this slaughtering. We find that those who are not included will be ma'akev the Korban Pesach. But those who are not, who are designated for not, those who are shechted for a person who cannot eat, they're not roy to eat the Korban Pesach. For example, somebody was choyle or zoking, or the other things we said, because he is somebody who was an orel, all these people who cannot eat, or a tamei, minolan, where do we know that that's ma'akev, and that makes the korban pesach posul? Or makro ish lefi ochloi tachoisu. Each man, according to his eating, he will be counted. Says the Gemara, iskash oichlin leminuyon. We make a hekish between those who are counted and those who eat. And therefore, just like those who are counted have to be then roy for the korban, so too those have to be then roy to be able to eat the korban, and therefore it's ma'akev, just like those who are going to be included in the chabura. If not, they're not going to their ma'akev. So too, those who are not roy to eat will also ma'akev the korban pesach.